Good afternoon, everyone. This is Charlotte Burrell. I am the Deputy Director of the Office Against Interpersonal Violence, and I know many of you were very excited about us going to this new reimbursement process. We are excited as well. One of the things that this new reimbursement process is expected to do is to make it easier for our subgrantees. We expect there to be less documentation that will need to be submitted on the front end, but all documentation will still need to be kept on site for the monitoring process and desk audits when we request additional information. Because there is less to review initially, we hope that it will become a much speedier process, and I can imagine everybody's clapping on that already. We also expect that we will have a much more improved monitoring, which means that that will be documentation sent to our office prior to visits and on visits. It is also going to be completed via the internet. And because it's internet-based, there's no need to send items in the mail, so you won't have to worry about emails bouncing back either. And it will also cut down on some of your postage costs. Now, there is that accountability for the subgrantees. You will still need to have all the same documentation that you used to send in on site. You may be requested from time to time to send in that documentation for us to complete your reimbursement review. We will have random desk monitoring or desk audits. We will probably look at a certain percentage every month where you will need to send in everything that you sent in under the old reimbursement system. So that would be all of your documentation, your bank statements, the different receipts, your bills, the check stubs for the personnel, things like that. One of the things that we're really trying to do with this is go to more of a site monitoring, where a lot of this will be done on site. Now, you are still held accountable for what you attest as appropriate reimbursements. If it's discovered through these desk audits or monitoring visits that an unallowable expense was paid, OAIV will request reimbursement of those expenses from your agency. So, when you sign documentation that says you attest that these are appropriate charges, you will be held accountable for that. Now, if you always can call your fiscal analyst or your program director at OAIV if you have questions as to whether an expense is allowable, and we can help you with that. And you can also consult your regulations for your subgrant. The documentation that will be required for you to submit the reimbursements online are the following. You will need your cover letter. You will need a workbook. You will need a general ledger, a bank statement, an equipment purchase documentation form if you are buying equipment, travel documentation form if there's going to be travel. On the cover letter, the subgrantee cover letter must have be on the agency's letterhead. It should include the subaward number. This will be on your subgrant agreement. The amount of reimbursement, that would be your federal reimbursement, or if it's DV, the state reimbursement. Do not include your match amount on your letter. The month of request, that would be from the 1st of June through the last day of the month, an authorized signature, and the following statement. I certify that this report is correct to the best of my knowledge and that all expenditures reported herein have been made in accordance with policies and guidelines and for the purposes stated in the application and award. In addition, when we send you your workbook, there will be a page in that workbook that can be used as a cover letter. It will pull all the documentation, such as the subaward number, the month, and the amount over into that particular sheet. If you choose to use that, that's the reason why we did that, is so that it would make it easier for people. But you don't have to use it. You can continue to use your own. But just remember, if you use that, you still need to print it on your agency letterhead. Most of you know what this is. This is your workbook that will also be requested. You will be receiving your workbook once we get all of the subgrants completed, and as soon as that's done, workbooks will be completed and sent out. This is also part of the workbook. This is where the yellow cells are, where you can enter your data into the workbook. In addition to the cover letter, you will need a general ledger. This may be a little something different from what you've done in the past. The general ledger will need to be program specific. So you will have all of your expenses that you're requesting for reimbursement clearly shown as debits and credits that will support the workbook that you're sending in. Also, we'll need a copy of your bank statement or bank register. That is so that we will have that documentation to know that these expenses on your ledger have actually been paid. Now, travel forms. We're not requiring you to send in all of the travel forms initially. You will still need to have all of that on site when we come to do the monitoring. The travel form that we have for you will be sent to you via email, as well as some other forms that we have worked on after this webinar. But the travel form, you will have the traveler's name, the purpose of the travel, total miles and rate, the lodging, the meals, and other travel-related documentation, such as luggage fees, fees for parking, meal tips that are not included maybe in the meal amount, tips for bellman, things of that nature. This is what the new travel form will look like. It has all of that documentation on it. Then we have new equipment form documentation. Remember that any equipment over $5,000 requires prior approval and quotes. That means that if you buy a car, you will need to get prior approval and 3 quotes. If you are buying $5,000 worth of computers, and there are several computers for that $5,000, we still want you to get quotes, but you don't have to have prior approval of that. What that means is that you may have 5 computers at $1,000 a piece. On this equipment form, you will need the item description, the date it was purchased, the location of the item, and the cost of the item. This is the equipment purchase form for below $5,000. This is the equipment procurement certification form for all items over $5,000. Again, these forms will be emailed to you. Before we get into the Smartsheet form, some of you will need to know what VOCA region you will be assigned to. Understand that some of you may be located centrally in the central part of the state, but you might be assigned to the South region or the North region. So, if your program director is Wanda Woods and your fiscal analyst, formerly Sabi, if those were the people you were contacting, you are in the North region. If it's D'Angela Matori or Christy Schoenecker that you speak with, you're in the Central region. South region, it's Kanya Gallion and Dontario Levi. If you do not know who your program director is or your fiscal analyst, please do not hesitate to contact us, and we will get that information to you, because you will need to know that when you complete this online Smartsheet form. Now we're getting into the actual form. Give me just a few minutes. Let me screen share.
These are little, that, I think he's trying to pull a separate sheet up.
Okay, we're having a little bit of technical difficulty, so please hold on. I need to get into this one. Let's see. Okay, sorry about that.
Yes, have to identify the exact document.
Okay.
Good.
We now have the form here. You were all sent a copy of a link for this monthly reimbursement request form. If you do not have it, please contact your program director. We will make sure that you have a copy of this. This will also be available on our website so that you can go to it and click. One of the things that I would suggest you do when you are using this form on a monthly basis is to make sure that you put this on your desktop. To do that, you will go up to this little arrow here where you see my arrow. You would do this, click on it, hold it down, and then move it to your desktop, just like that. That link will then be on your desktop. Okay, on the form, you will submit one reimbursement per entry. So if you have several subgrants with us, you will only submit one per sheet. So, for instance, you have a VOCA. You will submit VOCA, and then you will open up the form again and submit your stop. Then you would open up the screen again and submit your DV. Now, the subgrantee program name, that's the name that is on your subgrant agreement. For instance, it may be Catholic Charities Jackson Shelter. That may be what is actually on that subgrant agreement for that particular grant. Then you would select the funding source, and this is where the VOCA part comes in, where you have to know your VOCA Central, North, or South region. You will come over here and then select the month and year. We made it very simplified for you so that you can select that month and year without having to do two things. This is where you will include your requested federal funds for this reimbursement, what you want us to pay you. Do not include your match here, and do not include the total with your match. Just the federal funds, or in the case of DV, state funds. The next, and you will notice right here, if there's a red asterisk by it, you have to have that particular field completed, or you will not be able to submit the form. Now, your file attachments. This is where you will attach a PDF version or your Excel documentation, all the things you need for your reimbursement. This is where you will include your cover letter as an attachment, your general ledger, your bank statements, any of the forms that you need, as well as your workbook. It can be in any form, a PDF, a picture, a Word form, an Excel. You could even do a PowerPoint. Most of you will probably scan in your documentation as a whole and it be a PDF. If you have questions regarding that, do not hesitate to call me or email me and ask, and I will be happy to help you walk you through that. What will happen is when you browse your files, something like this will come up. And that's where you'll find your files. And that's how you would attach them. The next thing would be, who is submitting this form? We want to know that because if there is an issue with the form, we maybe need to contact that person. Also, who is the email of your fiscal contact for this program? If we need additional information, we will need that email so that we can send a request for additional information. Before you submit your forms, make sure to click this box right here. It says, send me a copy of my responses. Put your email address in. This will be your documentation that you submitted the reimbursement. Once you submit the reimbursement, it will go into our form called a Smartsheet. Give me a few moments, and I'll get back to the PowerPoint. Okay, now we're back at the PowerPoint. When you submit your documentation, this is how it comes to us. It actually provides a date and time as when it was submitted. So we know exactly when you submitted that documentation. Okay, now we're ready for any questions.
Any of you on the phone that has a question, you'll need to be sure to unmute your phone, and if you want to send a question through chat, you can send them now.
The question is there a file size limit that we can upload? As far as we know, there is not a file size limit. If we find that there is a problem, please do not hesitate to contact me. We know that in the past, when you've tried to send things email, you would have to send it several different emails to get through. The great thing about Smartsheet is that it does not have that limitation. So if we find that there is a problem, I can contact our Smartsheet representatives and hopefully get that fixed. But if you do find that it will not upload for some reason, call me immediately. will give you our telephone number. It's 601-206-1540, and ask for me, Charlotte Burrell.
Has the link to Smartsheet been sent out?
Yes, the link to Smartsheet has been sent out. It was sent out a few weeks ago. If you did not receive that link, please contact your program director and they will resend that link to you. There's one more question before that. There's several questions coming in. Hold on, I think we're missing some questions. Oh, yeah.
Here we go.
Keep going up. I think there was one more before that. Do we need to submit the reimbursement request as one document, or do the sections need to be broken up? You can do it however you choose. It can be one document, or you can break those up if you want. Whatever you find easiest for your agency.
So we need to create our own general ledger.
Do we need to create our own general ledger? Yes. Those general ledgers oftentimes can be pulled from whatever accounting software you may be using, such as QuickBooks. If you do not have a general accounting software, we would suggest that you purchase that. That can be part of the reimbursement process. If you need to purchase that, let us know, and we can make that part of your supplies or contract, whatever type of software you choose to use. That can be part of your grant as a reimbursable expense.
Do we only need to submit the cover letter, general ledger, bank statements, etc.?
You will need to submit the cover letter. Let me go back. This is the documentation that you will need to submit: the cover letter, your workbook, your general ledger for your program, your bank statement that has the reimbursable information on that bank statement that you've actually paid that. And if you have purchased equipment, that equipment purchase documentation. And if there's travel, the travel documentation.
How will the monthly report be sent out?
The monthly reports will also be sent via Smartsheet. That includes activity sheets will be sent via Smartsheet. You will receive an email with that link as well, and also a link for quarterly reports where you are talking about your progress towards your goals and objectives and activities.
Can you see that?
Yes. I know you said the forms would be emailed, but can the form be accessed from a form bank on your website in case the email does not work? Absolutely. That is our intention, is to have all of these forms put on our website so that you will have easy access to those. Do we still need to send the indirect cost letter? That would be something that if we need, we will request from you. That's something I didn't think about, honestly. So just make sure that you have that documentation available if we need it. And if we find that indirect cost letters are something that we will need with a reimbursement, we will let everybody know via email to add that to their regular monthly documentation that they submit in their reimbursement. Checks for expenses don't always clear in the month we are submitting. Do you need to see a clear check for every expense? You need to keep that documentation with you. The expense cannot be reimbursed until you have it's been debited from your bank account. So if you make the expense in June, but it does not clear till July, then you cannot submit the reimbursement for that particular expense until July, the July reimbursement. So, do we need to see a check for every reimbursement? Not on the front end, when you're submitting that documentation via this new process through Smartsheet, but yes, you will need to keep those checks and that bank statement and that documentation on site for desk audits and desk monitoring, as well as on-site monitoring that we will be doing more of as the year progresses. Okay, we use a clearinghouse for bill pay, and individual checks do not show up on our bank statement on the total for the bill pay that day. What should we send instead of a bank statement? You use a clearinghouse for bill pay. If you have a statement from that clearinghouse, which you should have something documenting that those payments were made via your bill pay system, send that instead of your bank statement for those particular items. If you have some more additional questions about that, give us a call and we will work out what would be the best thing for you to send in, and then we can provide that information to everybody in some frequently asked questions. Are images of checks from the bank website acceptable? We don't need images from the checks. We just need a general ledger and your bank statement. Yes, images for checks from the bank website are acceptable, but that would be something that you would keep on site as your on-site documentation. You do not need to send in individual check documentation anymore, strictly your bank statement that identifies each line item. If we can't submit July, August, and September expenses, can't be submitted reimbursements until August. I don't quite understand the question.
If we can't submit July, August and September expenses can't be submitted or reimbursed until August. Does that make it any more sensible?
I think so. If we can't submit July, August and September expenses can't be submitted. I think.
Yeah.
Retype that question for me, Stephanie.
Yeah. Or I can take her off mute, she can ask it.
Or you can we can take you off mute if you want to ask that, Stephanie. Okay, Stephanie, you're unmuted if you want to ask that question. Okay, we'll go to the next question right now. What will be your new location address? At the June 19th meeting, it was stated that the office was moving. We are moving. We're moving to the building across the street. We will make sure that we send everyone an email with the new address as soon as we are getting ready to move. Currently, we are still in the process of getting the office set up, and hopefully we should be moving. The earliest would be the end of this month, but it'll probably be sometime in August. So we will send you out a new address via email. You will probably get most of your emails for everyone from Chelsea Bennett, who is our administrative assistant. So please make sure to have Chelsea as an approved person for your email so that it doesn't go to junk mail. So all the employees who have not cashed their payroll checks cannot be included in that particular month. Generally, we would go online after the first of the month and print off those check copies for documentation. You do not have to print off the check copies. Your bank statement should have that information in there. If you have a direct deposit, that's going to be a little different. But if you have a check cashing system where it does not go directly into the person's account, it will show up on your bank statement. So you will not have to send those checks, the canceled checks, to us, or the checks that have been paid. Just keep that on site for your monitoring. The bank statement will have that documentation. Thank you, Stephanie. If July, August reimbursement requests can't be submitted until September, will they be reimbursed when submitted in September? Absolutely. And do they need to be submitted by each individual month? Let me read that question again. For instance, if there is something that is keeping you from submitting this documentation in the month of reimbursement, which is the 20th of the month after the expenses are incurred and paid, you will still need to submit that as your July reimbursement your August reimbursement, and your September reimbursement. Did that answer your question, Stephanie? So, but however, if your information is not debited from your bank account until August, that documentation goes into the August reimbursement. So, but yes, if for some reason you are unable to submit your reimbursements by the 20th of the month for the previous month, so July's are due on August 20th. If you're unable to submit that documentation, yes, you will still do a July reimbursement amount, and then you will do your August amount and your September amount. We do encourage you to please submit your reimbursements in a timely fashion on the date that they are due or before, so that we can get those reimbursements to you quicker. Is there a sample of the general ledger we need to send, or do our general ledgers need to look like our workbook sheets for the month we are requesting funds? There is not exactly a sample of a general ledger. If you're using an accounting software, there are general ledgers that show your debits and your credits. If you need an example, we'll be more than happy to provide you with something that we have seen as general ledgers. There are a lot of resources on the internet that can show you what a general ledger looks like. And using an accounting software will definitely take care of that for you. So we really do encourage you to have an accounting software that would be able to pull that report directly from the software for you. The new award workbooks have not been sent out. We are still in the process of completing all the sub-grants. So those awards will be sent out and are going out now. The workbooks will be sent out after you have signed your portion via DocuSign, which will come to you email for your signature on the sub-grant award. When we get that, and it's been uploaded into our system, workbooks will be completed and sent out to you as quickly as possible. Yes, an online bank statement will be okay. So please just, what you need to do is print that off and scan it in, because we really don't need you to a link to your bank statement. We're still in the process of that, Faye. When we get the workbooks to you, we'll get them to you as quickly as possible as soon as the sub-grant agreements have been signed by your agency. Yes, Lance, you can submit those individual pages with just your reimbursable amounts on it, what is actually your charges. For payroll periods, the end of the month, since these checks are not going to show up on the bank statement for that month, so these employees cannot be requested for that month. Correct. just like you've done with the past, nothing has changed in that process. It's just the amount of documentation that you're providing to us on the front end. You will still keep all of that documentation. Remember, a reimbursement cannot be, an expense cannot be reimbursed until you have it out of your bank account. So, you may incur the expense in July. However, it doesn't actually get paid until August. So that means that you will not be able to be reimbursed until the August reimbursement request. Stephanie, is that, yes, Stephanie, let me get with you on that. I think your system may be okay, but let's talk a little bit more in depth on that. Okay, when will we get the final workbook for the current ending year? Give me a call, Joyce, and we'll see what we need to do for you. Just to be sure, we use direct deposit, so our payroll does generally show up the day it is approved. We can request reimbursement on a complete month's payroll. Absolutely. In reference to the monthly reports, there was some misunderstanding about the total hours. Lieutenant Newell, if you will please call your program director, and we will make sure that we have any of the misunderstandings cleared up as quickly as possible, so that we start out the new year with a whole new attitude and a great experience. I think that may be it.